When you talk about an exercise session, one isolated single exercise session, there are two factors to consider. The intensity factor and the duration factor. Duration is the amount of time spent training, and intensity refers to the percentage of momentary effort. And this term intensity tends to be misunderstood. Some people think that by increasing the duration of their workouts, they're increasing the intensity, which is ridiculous. It's just the opposite. Every time you increase the duration, you have to decrease the intensity. These two things exist inversely to each other. They're mutually exclusive. You can't have a lot of one and a lot of the other. It's demonstrated by a very simple inverse ratio graph. It demonstrates the universal relationship that exists between intensity and duration. This is not a brainchild of Mike Mentzer. This is a basic law of physics. Universal principle. It applies to all activities, not just weight training. Chopping down trees, studying books, sex, whatever. The more intensely you do something, whenever the intensity increases a little bit, the duration has to decrease a lot. And if you want to build big muscles fast, then you've got to train as intensely as possible, because that is the one factor most responsible for building mass. And if you want to build mass, you've got to train for short periods so you can train intensely. That's the nature of the relationship. You can train either hard or you can train long, but you can't train hard and long. It's impossible. Not because I say you can't, but because it's impossible. Is there anybody here who can sprint for a mile? What's the longest sprint in Olympic competition? Anybody know? 400 meters. Why isn't there an 800-meter sprint? Or a mile sprint? It's laughable, yeah, because it's ridiculous. It's impossible. Just like it's impossible to train hard for 2 hours. Nobody can train really hard. When I talk about hard, I mean maximally. All-out effort for 2 hours. If you train as hard as you possibly can, each and every set, then the majority of you in here cannot train in 30 minutes. I'm talking about as hard as you possibly can. Every set to total failure with minimal rest in between sets. Just enough rest between sets so you can go to your next set, resume your next set, and go to muscular failure as opposed to cardiovascular failure. That is, not rush so fast that your cardiovascular system becomes the limiting system. You want to go to muscular failure. If you do that, you will probably not train in 30 minutes.
How long might it be between? Would that be 30 seconds?
It doesn't matter. It's going to vary from muscle group to muscle group because of the demands placed on the cardiovascular system. You rest just long enough between sets so you can resume the next set and go to muscular failure as opposed to cardiovascular failure. In other words, if you're doing your legs and you're going from one set to another, and the second set terminates because you're breathing so hard as opposed to true muscular failure in the legs, then you didn't rest long enough. See what I'm saying? Any questions about this? It's not even debatable. It's fact, not theory. It's immutable. I mean, this is one of the basic laws of nature. You ever compare the calves of a sprinter to the calves of a distance runner? I use this example all the time, but it's one of the best there is. The sprinter always has a large muscular calf, but the distance runner always has a stringy little calf. Because he overtrains, he's chronically overtraining. And I would venture to say the majority of bodybuilders, top bodybuilders today who are training over 2 hours a day, would look like distance runners if they weren't taking steroids. They're so grossly overtrained.
The important point to remember here is that you will grow progressively larger and stronger muscles only when you train with increasing levels of intensity. This is universal and applies to all human beings.
Intensity refers to the percentage of momentary muscular effort. Anything that reduces momentary muscular effort reduces intensity and thereby reduces results. What you want to do is increase muscular involvement, not diminish it. Anything you can do to make the exercise harder, thereby increasing muscular involvement, again, that's the name of the game. It's so damn obvious. Either you train, think about it this way. We all said in the very beginning that growth does not come easy. Anybody here thinks growth comes easily? Anybody want to challenge that? Has anybody grown too fast this year? No, we all know growth doesn't come easily. You literally have to force growth. Now you tell me how you force growth with light weights, mild exertion, easy workouts. The harder you train, the faster you grow. But the harder you train, the less time you can spend training. It's as simple as that. Again, the intensity and duration relationship is a universal one. It doesn't exist just for Mike Mentzer. There are some people who are fond of saying that it works for Mike Mentzer, it works for Casey Viator, it works for Ray Mentzer, but it works for no one else in the world. Or we all have vastly different requirements. And yet these same people all train alike. Arnold does 20 sets, 6 days a week. Franco does 20 sets, 6 days a week. Frank Zane does 20 sets, 6 days a week. If they're all so different, why do they train exactly alike? The point of the matter is we aren't all that different physiologically. We're all unique as individuals. But when a young man goes to medical school, or a young woman, and studies muscle physiology, whose physiology is he studying? Everybody. We all have the same muscle physiology. The biochemical changes leading to muscle growth in Mike Mentzer are the same in you. And it follows from that the specific stimulus required to induce those biochemical changes leading to muscle growth in you and me is the same. What is that stimulus? High intensity muscular contraction. It's universal. It's a medical fact, not subject to debate. Simple as that. What is true, and this is where the confusion comes in, is that we all grow at different rates of speed. I might grow faster as a result of high intensity training. But we all will grow faster when each of us trains more intensely. We all have different innate adaptabilities to exercise. Age, existing physical condition, motivation, a lot of different factors. But the underlying muscle physiology is the same. If you're not gaining fast now, or if you're not gaining at all, you'll gain faster when you train more intensely. The people who say we all have different training requirements are entirely wrong. They're ignorant of the basic facts regarding muscle physiology. If we all had different physiologies, medical science could not exist. A doctor would have to study each individual as a separate physiological entity and then learn all the intricacies of his physiology and devise medicine around him. We could not have medical science. The very fact that they could take the basic principles of physiology and apply it to the whole human race is what makes medical science a viable discipline. Make sense? Sounds damn good to me. Any questions? I can't make it any simpler than that. I mean, all the theoretic and academic bullshit aside, I mean, it just follows from common sense. The harder you train, the faster you grow. But it's also true, you can't forget, that the harder you train, the less time you can spend training. Just like the faster you run, the less distance you can run. Sure, you can train as hard as possible for 30 minutes, then diminish the intensity and train for 8 hours after that. That's not going to result in anything except reduced progress.
Okay, can we just go maybe to basics? Like, I've heard a lot of different theories. For instance, I've heard theories like the cells in, say, your muscle, after you stimulate them, the way they grow is they get bigger. And then I've also heard that they split and you get too smaller, or some similar process to mitosis, or something like that. So would it be that the cells get larger then?
Well, that's always been the theory that the physiologists believed in, that the cells themselves grow, yeah.
So we always keep the same amount
of muscle cells and fibers. Hyperplasia would believe the opposite. You would split and increase the number of fibers. Hyperplasia is the splitting of muscle fibers. It's believed that by certain exercise physiologists that if you train a certain muscle intensely enough or severely enough, the muscle fibers are going to split. But it's never been proven conclusively. And I talked to this Dr. Jean Voss, who's very involved in this kind of research, and he believes that it does not exist. And it was my humble opinion that it did not exist either, because if in fact you could increase muscle fiber density through the splitting of fibers, then you could increase a person's mass potential in any given muscle group. A guy like Yor Marati, who had almost no pectoral development, if you could split those muscle fibers and increase the fiber density, that is the number of fibers per square inch, then he could potentially have a pec like Count Scala someday. That'll never happen. But again, a lot of this can be chalked up to mental masturbation. all of the academics aside, what really counts is that you get your ass in the gym and train hard. And if you're training 6 to 8 hours a day, you're not training hard. It's laudable from one standpoint. You're devoted, you're willing to be diligent, put a lot of work in, but that has nothing to do with progress.
Intense training is purposeful behavior aimed at the goal of increasing muscular size and strength. In order to train as hard as possible, you must retain a clear image of your purpose. Once your goal is sharply but realistically defined, all that remains is carrying out your plan.